So, I hear that you're starting up on Le Mans Ultimate. There's a lot of new players, and you want to get started in the daily race ladder. You want to try and get your rating up. And while I have done a video on this previously, I thought, why not show you my exact procedure, step by step, on how I would actually do this. So, today, we are starting on a brand new race control account. Let's see how long it takes us to get into that silver driver rating, and see what we'd actually do to speed up that process. My name's Whitehead, and you're watching the Coach Dave from the Ultimate YouTube channel. Okay, so here we are. So you can see we are bronze 3, bronze 0. So we've not done a single daily race, and even if you look on our profile here, you can see that we have done no races, no event history. So we are starting completely from scratch. So we really are starting from the beginning. So what we're going to do is, because we haven't really got much options, obviously we're in bronze safety rating, so we're going to hop into the LMG3 fixed race, which is going to be at Portimao. We've obviously done some reference laps here, thankfully, and by the looks of it, it looks like the Ford seems to be the dominant car. It seems that way at least, so we are going to hop in a Ford, put a nice bright yellow livery on with the stripes. We have got the rookie badge as well, so that will affect our split placement. Obviously these badges, the trusted racer, the good driver, the warning badge, and obviously the red badge, or yeah, probation, and also the red badge there. So there are orange and red warning badges, but they all affect split placement. I think the rookie badge does as well. I'm not 100% sure, but I know for a fact that the blue, the green, the orange, and the red, they all affect placement. So that's going to be very interesting to see where we are actually split-wise. Obviously, split size is around 22, so you know, depending on how many people there are entered, you'll be able to kind of work out roughly where your split will probably lie. But anyways, let's have a go. So we've got our lovely name there, White Bread, of course. Let's figure out what fuel we need. I believe it's around 75 litres and around 40% virtual energy. But again, we're not going to hugely worry too much about raw pace. We just simply want to finish the races clean. And we'll come to that when we actually get into the race fully. But let's start off by getting a couple of laps out there now. We've got 4 minutes until, well, 3 3/4 minutes, sorry, until the server actually starts. We've got a little bit of time before we actually get in there. It'll be time for probably 1 or 2 laps, and obviously since we've got tyre warmers, we'll be able to get a full experience of what the car is going to feel like. So as I briefly mentioned in the intro, we have done a similar video to this before, but obviously that was me in a top split race. So obviously the driving, the pace and the standards are generally a little bit better than what you'd expect from one of these lower split races. But obviously, as much as my approach isn't too different to what I showed in that video, I'd have to do it in a different way and race in a different way, because presumably people that we're up against will be less experienced, and potentially, if we're racing against people with, warning badges and whatnot, then it'll be even more sketchy. Obviously, we start on B0 safety rating, so our safety rating is bottom of the barrel, really. So that's something that we have to very much bear in mind. Another thing worth bearing in mind is track limits, of course, and Portimao is relatively brutal with track limits, at very particular corners, so that's going to be something that we're going to have to very much bear in mind, because obviously track limits, collisions, anything like that, any sort of minor or major infringement will affect our safety rating, and obviously we want to try and gain the safety rating as quickly as possible, which is no easy task. That is for sure. You can see we're actually going to get just 1 lap, I think, before we have to get into the server. So it is always nice to try and find one of these servers that's a little bit empty. You can see we've only got 6 cars on the track, which is nice. It's relatively rare to have that, but always good to get a bit of acclimatization before the daily race to make sure you're not going to just automatically spin the car. And obviously it's good to find a car that you actually suit quite well also. As much as I'm choosing the Ford right now, it might not be a car that you actually enjoy. And there are still a variety of options that are, you know, competitive enough, but a lot more drivable. You know, the Aston Martin, for example, was probably the most drivable car I used for the daily racing reference laps that I did earlier in the week. So again, there is still a lot of preference involved with picking your car. But actually, quite a good thing we're already seeing. If you look at the top left leaderboard, you can see there's a a big 20-second gap between the fastest lap in practice and the slowest lap. And even then, with our, in fact, it's even more now, 25 seconds. And while granted that McLaren probably spun, that's a good indication of what we might have to encounter in our first few daily races. It's always a little bit difficult to gauge because obviously you sometimes have people who are esports based and making new accounts, you know, making, you know, the move on to LMU from iRacing, for example. I have had that a couple of times where, you know, you're in a lower split and then you see a name that you very much recognize who is also having the same fight as you. But yeah, for the most part, it is going to be people that are a little less experienced, so you're going to have to take a lot more caution. And obviously one of the big things that we saw at Monza when we did that video originally was that I had quite a lot of trust in people. You know, there wasn't a lot of bad misjudgments from people, you know, other than the general lap 1 incidents that you'd kind of come to expect at Monza. A lot of it was, you know, just minor collisions. You wouldn't get someone missing their braking point by about 100 meters, or someone, you know, stopping the car significantly too much, or anything like that. You know, it's very different in that split. Obviously, that was being split 1, versus what we're going to have in this split as well. So that is something very much that we're going to see. And we're going to have to bear in mind as we just load in now. And there you go, split 5. So not the lowest split. We're fortunately with a lot of actual blue badge drivers. So with a lot of thumbs up, which is good. But we are still 19th in the driver ranking in terms of our rating. So the fortunate thing is if we get even somewhat of a decent result in this race, we're going to gain a lot of driver rating. But obviously that's not the priority in this. The priority is to try and get as much safety rating as we can, because safety rating is what's going to allow you to do those other daily races. I think that's a big common misconception. It's something that I even made mistakes on when I first started on Le Mans Ultimate, is that the safety rating is the more important thing. You know, you're only going to be able to get into those higher splits, those higher races, and, you know, those special events as well that happen if you get a better safety rating. So I'm going out to do my quali lap now. The reason being, if you want to kind of do your bit of double duty and try and gain some safety rating and driver rating at the same time, qualifying, if you have the pace, is always a good thing, because obviously if you sit in the pit lane the whole time, then you're obviously not going to settle up. You're going to start from the back of the grid, which will give you minus rating, especially since we're ranked number 19 as well. If we manage to qualify even in the top 10, we're going to gain quite a lot of driver rating. It would also be interesting to see, for me at least, how long this will take to actually, how long it will take us to actually get into silver safety rating. Because once you get into silver, you can get into those longer daily races. You know, the NGC Sprint Cup, the Elms Sprint Cup, and the Prototype Fixed. And while I wouldn't really recommend doing the Prototype Fixed for safety rating farming, I would always say that the GT3 Sprint Cup, because it's a slightly longer race, will always have a bigger or a slightly better multiplier than these fixed races. And, you know, presumably you'd have slightly better driving standards in the higher up races as well. At least that would be the assumption, but it isn't always the case, as we know. I'm really shocked that that's actually giving us a green into there, considering how we're not really going off track there. It's a very strange corner. Speaking of strange corners, there are quite a few in these daily races this week. And if you'd like a guide on how to negotiate said corners and negotiate other parts of the lap in the fastest and cleanest way possible, make sure to check out the Coach Dave for the Ultimate YouTube channel and check out the most recent weekly guides we've done on the daily races. We do one every week. So if you want some tips and tricks on how to get the maximum out of your lap times, Make sure to do that, and make sure to use the CoSafe Delta app as well. We've got lots of lap time comparisons and data to overlay yourself with, so you can see exactly what you're doing wrong and exactly how you're doing it wrong. Not the most ideal corner there for us, but it's okay. As long as we don't get any track limit penalties or warnings or invalidations, that is perfectly fine. You can see you've kept the car comfortably within track limits the entire time so far, which is all we need to do. Oh, bit of understeer there. Suboptimal. Considering we are on race fuel, that is not bad. I will double check our usage as well. Okay, 3.54, which is around 3.6. And then 2.5 litres of fuel. So let's just go 3.6% a lap. And we'll figure out how much we need. We'll probably go 12, we'll probably say 12 laps. Should be fine, I think. If I just do some maths quickly on my phone, using my handy little calculator. So it'll be, 12 laps times 3.6. 43, 44. So we'll go 44%. That should be more than enough there. I believe it was 2.6 a lap litres. Yeah, we'll be fine with that, I reckon. So being a little bit cautious. Okay, so yeah, so as I kind of mentioned, there's a big pace gap. You can see 24 seconds there, but I'm guessing that was a big mistake from them. But again, 10 seconds between us and P18. So there's going to be a very, very big pace difference, which means that while we're going to be doing the same approach that we did last time, we're going to have to be very, very careful of the delta at which we'll catch people. That's obviously going to be something that we need to be very, very careful of, and also of any incidents that are going to occur. And there will be incidents, but fortunately, starting from the pit lane, we are going to gain... We're going to have quite a bit of free room in front of us before we encounter any of those incidents. And yeah, the main reason that we're not starting from the front of the grid, while we probably could pull away and we probably wouldn't have a huge issue, the main worry that we have usually starting from the grid is just that if there is anyone that misjudges the corner, you get crashed and you may end up DNFing, or you get put into that field, into that battle, and you end up losing a lot of safety rating, which is, again, the priority of this entire escapade for us. So now, starting from the pit lane, we can drive to the front of the pit lane. It is worth being very mindful that you need to be careful of people exiting the pit lane, like that car behind us, because we obviously don't want to have any collisions. I'm going to stop right over... Okay, we're good. Now we go right up to the line. We will look in the mirror, make sure there's nothing coming close. I've seen a few bugs and incidents in the pit lane, so it is always a bit nerve-wracking. So, it's not foolproof, unfortunately. It's not 100% win rate, I guess, with the strategy. But it's definitely safer than being in that pack. Especially if you're in a lower split, it's always a lot easier to come through after all the incidents and stuff have played out on the first lap, rather than experiencing that firsthand in the moment. Okay, green flag. Let's just keep an eye out when we actually go green in the pit lane. We actually haven't got that many cars turned on, unfortunately, so I need to be a little bit careful. Keep a very big eye on the map and listen to the spotter, because the spotter will announce if there's any yellow flags or any incidents. And of course, looking at the relative and the map as well is very helpful. There's a spinner on the right, which we saw. Let's go nice and wide. There's another spinner. Okay, so you can see there are quite a lot of incidents already. We're going to go very, very cautious into the hairpin. Just wait for things to happen. There's two spinners on the left. There's one rejoining. We need to be a little bit careful of that. There's a bit of a sketchy rejoin, and we were kind of boxed in, unfortunately. But we are through cleanly. There's a car lagging up ahead, so we need to be very, very cautious of that. it'll be one of those cases that we probably just wait until they overshoot a corner or until a mistake or incident happens. And that's one of the big trends that you're going to be seeing a lot in my driving, hopefully, if I'm not, you know, if I don't make any mistakes, is cautious. You know, you need to be very, very cautious because you don't know who you're up against. You don't know what sort of, you know, experience levels or agendas, I suppose, they have while driving. Oh, there's a crash here. On the brake, go very far away from that incident, and we are through. Look on the relative, we are clear. Okay, that's actually helped us a lot here because we're away from that car that was lagging, and we gain a few positions as well. So you can see already we've gone from, I believe, 20th or 19th to 7th in one lap. And we didn't really do anything. You saw we didn't try and force any issues. We left big gaps to everyone else in the field. And we've just by simply keeping out of trouble, we've gained that many positions. So you can already see again, if we qualified, you know, near the front or even in the middle of the pack, we'd have been in that incident. As there's someone rejoining, we're going to leave them a lot of room there. But you can see if we'd started in that mid-pack, you know, perhaps if we were a little bit, you know, newer to this game and we, you know, weren't confident that we could qualify pole position, we would have potentially been in those incidents. And that's the main thing. You don't want to be in that pack. And that's the whole idea of, you know, starting from the pit lane. You're just minimizing the amount of, you know, probability that you're in those incidents at the first few corners, but at the same time maximizing the amount of time and space that you have to react. You know, if you're starting from the back of the pack, you know, on the grid still, then you still don't have much time to react and respond to any incidents that occur. And whereas starting from the pit lane, we're a good, you know, few seconds behind the rest of the field. So if anything does happen, you can see it, you know, see where the car is actually going to end up, where it rests, and then avoid, you know, and respond as needed. I will say, without jinxing anything, hopefully, that we've been kind of blessed with who we've been up against in this race so far. Everyone seems to be relatively sensible. Obviously there have been incidents, but no one's done anything extremely dodgy. And we've managed to keep ourselves squeaky clean so far, which is obviously important. We've also not got any track limit warnings, which is, again, very crucial. Okay, we are catching these cars quite quickly. This car goes wide, so let's see if we can maybe take advantage. They've kept it very narrow on the left. And again, this is very low risk here, because you've got a good exit, and it means we are far clear before we even get to the braking zone. We're going to keep to the left-hand side just to make sure that if they do miss their braking point, which they actually do slightly, so do we. But again, we've minimized the probability that we're going to be involved in an incident. We took a low-risk move, didn't send a dive bomb or anything like that, and we've left them room. We've not cut across them, and even though we were clear, we've not cut across. So we've just given them all the space to use themselves, rather than, you know, if they miss the braking point, they end up hitting us and we end up getting damage or losing our safety rating. Similar sort of situation again here. You can see we are catching quite quickly. But again, we don't want to be sending one of those dive bombs. We don't want to really be taking too much of a risk. If a clear opportunity presents itself, then we will go for it. But if not, we will just sit here. We'll just sit and wait. Because again, we don't know how aggressive this guy is going to want to hold onto a position. It is for a podium. Okay, he goes wide. Low risk opportunity here. And we are clear. And thankfully, because it's a 5-speed corner, we can cut across and take our line. But again, you can see we probably could have made that corner, that overtake, you know, 1 or 2, maybe 3 corners earlier. But by waiting, we just left ourselves completely safe and had no real risk of an incident there. Oh, incident up ahead. We will brake. We will avoid here. Absolute chaos. Okay, unfortunately, we lost 2 positions there. But we kept safe. We didn't have any contact with anyone. We avoided all the incidents, and there's another spin there. Goodness, what is happening now? I did jinx it, didn't I? I said that people were being sensible, and we have jinxed ourselves, unfortunately. Okay, we are going to have a look. We're going to sit behind. There's no point forcing that too much. He does go very wide here, so perhaps we do have the opportunity here. We have put ourselves on the outside here, though. We'll see if he gives us the room. He does actually let us go, I think. Yes, he does. Thank you very much, sir. So again, being very, very tentative, being very, very cautious and tentative. Even, you know, again, if I wasn't trying to get safety rating and I was just trying to get the win, we would have pushed through those positions a lot earlier. You know, we'd probably be in the lead comfortably now, just because I'd have been a lot more aggressive and I wouldn't have worried so much about contact. But again, the entire priority of these races for us now is to try and get some safety ratings so that we can get out of these lower splits and make sure we get one of those good old green badges. Because again, you know, I mentioned that it was quite good that there are a lot of blue badge drivers in this race, you know, with the thumbs up. I believe it's trusted drivers. But again, we've seen that that doesn't mean a huge amount. We've seen that there's a lot of drivers that are very, very sketchy. There's been a lot of strange incidents, especially that one on the main straight where that car... Well, I'm not sure if he was trying to take out the leader or if the leader was trying to take him out. Or I'm not really sure. We'll have to review on the replay. But you can see there's a lot of strange instances that are happening. But thankfully, we're through it safe. We are in second position, which is positive for us. It means that we've only got one car on the lead lap to clear. Obviously, we have got a couple of blue flag cars still, potentially to negotiate. But again, we don't need to worry about those. We don't need to worry about position. You know, even if we finish around here, we've got a big gap to the cars behind, so we don't need to panic. And if we can try and get P1, that would be nice, but we don't need to. You know, we don't want to ruin our no contact streak by doing something silly. Okay, we're just lifting off, getting a little bit close. A really good acceleration is forward, and it's leaving me... Well, it's causing me to have to lift out the throttle and have to give this guy a bit more space. There's a Mustang spun. Thankfully he stays there, thank you very much. Okay, so we are waiting for a mistake here, ideally. I don't really want to force an overtake on this guy. He was also in an incident with that Lamborghini at the start of the second lap or third lap, or whenever it was. So we don't know, you know, how aggressive this guy's going to be. Okay, we have got a very good run here. If we can get clear, we will go for it. But if not, then we will just sit behind. I think we are going to maybe get clear. Okay, we're going to be very cautious there. We could have gone for that. We could have gone for that, and probably should have gone for that. But, again, we don't know if he's just going to turn in and cause the contact. It's not worth the risk. And again, for us, we want to make a move that's 100%, not 95% or 85%, you know. And again, we could have been clear had we been a bit more brave. You can see he's defending. So he is throwing some defensive shapes. We are significantly faster, so this move will come eventually. But again, we don't want to force it too much. Okay, we're going to try and set up a good exit. That's probably the best way to do it, is rather than trying to send a move on the entry, try and set up a move for the exit. That's probably one of the biggest things that I see a lot of people, you know, do wrong. You know, a lot of the incidents that actually happen are on the entry, when you try and send a move too deep, or the guy tries to defend too late. Whereas if you try and send a move up on the exit, the likelihood is you'll be able to just get a clean exit and get through and pull away. So we're going to still try and force it. He's gone a little bit wide. Is that enough for us? It is. It is enough for us. He is going to get quite close to us here. You can see we try to take the curb, giving him as much room as we can. We keep nice and narrow, and that is the overtake. So pretty much exactly as I mentioned. He might have a look down towards turn 1, but again, he's a lot further back from us than what would be ideally feasible for that overtake to take place. Okay, and we are through. He's gone a little bit wide there, and that is the position for us. And again, we've gone from last to first, avoided incidents, and there has not been one single piece of contact made, not one single track limit extension either. And all we did, you know, we could have made that move quicker. We could have got through the positions a lot faster. But we didn't. We waited for a clear opportunity to present itself. And that's the biggest thing that biggest piece of advice that I can give. Is that you try and wait for an exit. Don't try and, force the issue on the entry. And don't try and, fully send it. 99% of the time, that's just going to cause an incident. Especially in a lower split. So it's always that risk versus reward factor that comes into play heavily in these sorts of races. Okay, we have got a lapped car up ahead, so we need to be a little bit mindful. Okay, they are weaving around, so let's be a little bit careful here. Okay, they are letting us go. Nice, thank you. And again, that doesn't matter if we finish first right now, or if we'd finish third or fifth or even 18th, The whole point is getting through the race cleanly. With no penalty points, no collisions with bollards, no collisions with cars or walls or anything of the sort. So I believe we are maybe a lap heavy on energy, maybe 2 laps heavy on fuel. Yeah, 0.7 fuel ratio really. It says 0.69, but which is very nice, but 0.70 is probably what I will run just to be a little bit safe. Also, while we've got a little bit of free time, this is what I'm using in the Ford for electronics if you want to do one of these daily races. In all honesty, I'm probably a little bit too high on the TC slip. Usually I even run this, but for a little bit of safety, I find that this sort of TC is like a surefire way to work in the Ford. Brake bias as well, I usually run, if you want to be safe under braking, around 51. But obviously for me, I know the Fords really well, so I generally run a bit further back brake bias, but I would recommend for, the vast majority of people use above 50, or closer to 50 at least. Be careful of this Ford here. They are just letting us go, thank you. Leave them as much room as possible. And there we go. That is race 1 in the books. We kept the car clean, didn't get any track limit points, didn't have any collisions with anyone else. And we also get the win to boot, which is rather surprising, but also quite nice. I expected it to take us longer to get through the field. You can just press pause straight after the race. You don't need to stop and pull to the side. It's very important to remember that, because obviously after the flag, if you stop, you often get hit. So make sure you just press pause straight away after the checkered flag. Make sure you don't get involved in any sort of incidents. Okay, let's have a look at some of the replays then, quickly, while we have a little bit of time. This Merc doesn't seem very good at dodging these. But it's very interesting to see, and unfortunately we actually saw from here that there was something happening. And then we saw this kind of pit maneuver swerve incident here. But yeah, you can see we spin, and we slowed down quite a lot. We had to be I nearly went to the right, and then I saw the Mercedes looking to the right. So you can actually see that we looked to the right because I saw the Lambo spinning, and we had to swerve to the left to avoid this Mercedes who was full sending in. And actually, very, very good example of what I was talking about. So if you look on board with this Merc here, you see, sees the incident, sends it in full speed, tries to gain positions. And because of that, while yes, this wasn't technically, his fault, he was just avoiding. He could have avoided by just waiting. And again, regardless of, whether I could have done that, I was looking to perhaps do the same. But again, he sent it in, tried to get past the cars and get past the incident, but the incident came back to bite. So it's a very big thing that we just waited. As you saw, we drove off track. We gave a very wide berth. We gave up a position there to the Lamborghini on the right there, who comes through, who actually got quite fortunate with that it happened, that he was a bit further behind. But again, we lost that position. We weren't afraid, but we, kept the car clean and kept the track limits clean. And if you go to the online results, you'll see the actual result of that is that, look, we have 3 up arrows. Well, we can't actually see that, but 3 up arrows on the safety rating. And you see everyone else in the server, there's one guy that has 3 up arrows, and there's, you know, 3 down arrows, 2 down arrows, 2 down arrows, 2 down arrows again. So, you know, a lot of people lost a lot of safety rating in that race, and we were one of the few people to gain safety rating, and we went up 3 arrows, so which is like the biggest kind of amount that you can go up by, at least on that HUD. So okay, here we are. We are in split 7 out of 14. So race 1 we were split 5 out of 11. Here we are split 7 out of 14. So we're technically a lower split, even though we're basically the same percentage, I guess, from the top to bottom. We are number 13 in the race in terms of our ranking. That's driver ranking. So we have gone up a bit relative to the first race. Obviously that's courtesy of potentially our pole and win. So let's go out for the second qualifying session of the video. Same principle and same stuff as we did last time. But yeah, as I mentioned, similar sort of procedure to what we did last race, because that worked for us. But again, we'll see if this race is as successful or if we're going to have more issues. As I say, we got relatively fortunate that last race. That's a relatively clean lap though. Should be a 0.4 barring any issues in the last corner. Oh, actually a 0.3 nearly. Bit late on the upshift there. No, we're going to miss out on a 0.3 I think by a couple of thousandths. Yeah, 4.02. Would have been nice. Would have been nice to get that, unfortunately. But that is okay. Okay, there we go. We are on new tyres and everything like that. Let's drive out of the pit lane. Be very, very cautious of any other cars. Now let's see if this race is any more content than the previous one. I hope for my sake and my heart rate that, no, it is not any more exciting. It's the same excitement at maximum. But we'll see. They're going 3 wide into there, I see up ahead. Will there be any at turn 2? That was where we saw our first spinners last race. And yes, there is a yellow flag. There was a car that stopped in the middle of the circuit. And yet there is quite a few cars off. We're going to be nice and cautious through. There's another spinner up here. They didn't hold their brakes, so we're going to go right out wide. We're also going to try and get past this McLaren. We've already gained quite a lot more spaces than we did last lap. But there's not been a spinner or incident here. There were 2 spinners or 3 spinners, I believe, at that corner on the previous race. Okay, there is a yellow flag up here. Oh, there is a big incident. There's one car off on the left, another car off on the left in the Porsche. This McLaren is going nice and slowly as well. Have a little slide. Oh, we're going to let them have that. Oh, this McLaren goes in very deep. Let's try and get through. No, we're not able to do that just yet. Okay, similar thing to what we mentioned last time. Wait for a clear opportunity to present itself as there's a car off on the left. Oh. Okay, there we go. We get the move done. Nice. Good stuff. Okay, Lexus time. There is a very, very cool livery, I must say. I'm a fan of this. It's very quirky, very goofy. It's a quirky little car. Goofy little car. Okay, they go a little bit wide. Is that gonna present an opportunity for us down towards turn 1? Maybe get a run, but it's not gonna be worth the risk. We will slipstream and we will pull out and see what they do. If they decide to lift, then we'll go for it. But if not, we will back out. And we back out. We'll just wait for the opportunity to present itself. Lexus goes in quite deep, hits the sausage curb. They go a little bit wide. Oh, they came across. Fair enough. Okay, now let's try and get one of these exit overtakes that I mentioned in the previous race. We've got a very good exit here. We are going to be side by side into the corner, so there's not huge risk with this. We keep it very narrow, and we get the move done. So into that sort of corner, as long as you just stay alongside, it shouldn't be a huge issue unless they just turn in. But fortunately they didn't. We were there, we did have significant overlap, and that was all we needed. And now BMW. Okay, we're not going to try and go for this here. We're just going to wait to try and force a little bit of an issue, see if they go a little bit wide. They do go wide, we also follow them, but we get the move potentially done. Yep, we do. We have a little bit of a slide. Just trying to keep the car narrow so that we don't end up causing collision ourselves. But we get the move done. Now we're up to P5. And now we've got two cars that are seemingly, fighting for position or being quite, very close together. So this is where things are going to get a little bit difficult, I think. Or a little bit more perilous. I say that, and the Porsche goes very wide. Are we going to have enough of a run to clear them by turn 1? Let's have a look. We are going to brake very, very early. It's just worth waiting another corner. It's not worth risking that one. Well, yes, we probably had the move done. Going to the corner side by side is much more risky than just waiting a couple of corners, not losing too much time, and getting a run into the hairpin. You can see here, we do that again. See that? We get the car through. Nice. That was a lot less risky than turn 1. So that is, again, a good decision that we've made there. And now the Aston Martin. Oh, they spin. Oh, the Porsche spins behind as well. Salute. 07. 07 for those cars. But I was very fortunate, actually, that we were able to spot that. That would have been a really good segue, to be honest, because I was actually going to go make a point and say that in these sorts of races, sometimes, no matter what you do, incidents will just find you. There will sometimes be a scenario where you get unlucky, and that was very nearly one of them. We got quite fortunate, we saw that quite early, and again, that is a corner that generally does have those sort of spins quite frequently, as we saw two guys spinning the same, synchronized spinning, which was pretty beautiful. Lovely figure skating reference there, or lovely skating reference. But yeah, it's one of those where that corner is pretty difficult, but sometimes you won't be able to avoid it, and that's fine. You can't always be completely incident free, can't always be contact free, luck can't always go your way, but the main thing is that you try to minimize the odds of that happening. You try and stay in a clear road, try and look for the space on the track, try and hang back in certain corners. You give yourself the opportunity to react should an incident like that happen. We got a very good exit. Are we going to try and keep it through here? Okay, they're actually going to let us go, thank you. I was actually planning on lifting there myself. You actually saw probably on the tiny pedal overlay that we were having a partial lift. Unfortunately, this BMW lets us go, which is very nice of them. The likelihood is they will want to keep this position, and rightly so. It is P1 after all. So we need to take a slightly different approach to this position, and we did in the other ones. BMW goes a little bit wide. Fortunately, we were a bit too far back to profit from that. I also must say that livery is making me hungry. It's reminding me of the Chinese shop down the road. It's the same colour palette, the exact same colour palette. I might get a takeaway later. Okay, let's not think about that. Let's not get distracted. The back Marco drives off track, which is good for us. BMW goes a little bit deep, which again, is good for us. This BMW is struggling a little bit. Okay, are we going to get the switch back? We are. There we go. And we get clear. Nice. Oh, it's not quite going to be a 0.4. But it is a 0.5, which is nice. The good thing is you've got quite a big gap to the car behind now, and quite a big gap to the back markers ahead. So, fortunately, we are in a good position where we can just chill. We can just cruise home for the last couple of laps. Again, we are around a lap over fueled, which is perfectly fine. But again, we saw in the early stages of that race there that the slowing down, you know, letting people do their thing, letting things happen ahead, is definitely the safer strategy than trying to force the issue. You know, we actually saw that the one time I did almost try and force the issue a little bit was into this corner, and that was when the Aston Martin spun. So, it very much is a case that, you know, if you try and put pressure on someone, they might make a mistake, and, you know, while yes, that's fine, it can help you, you need to be very wary of that happening and how that's going to manifest itself. You know, he could have gone wide, he could have overshot, but he spun across the track towards us, you know, towards where we were. So it was good that we caught that, but it's something that you need to be very, very wary of. But the main thing that I wanted to kind of go into before ending this video as a whole is car choice. Obviously, with these fixed setup races, the cars are all, you know, on a fixed setup, goes without saying. But the cars all have their own very defined strengths, weaknesses, and characteristics, right? And obviously in a fixed race, when you're trying to gain safety rating, you want to try and make sure you get the overtakes done before you get to the corner. Like ideally, you want to get out of the corner, get a really good exit, and overtake as many cars as you can down that straight, and you just want to get clear. You want to accelerate out of trouble. And for that, there are a couple of really strong options that should be picked above the rest if you can handle them. The first of which is probably the most useful and user-friendly one is the BMW. It does have inherent oversteer on exit due to its welded diff, but it is a very powerful car and one that you can very much overtake other cars with, and you saw when we were behind the BMW. Despite them getting worse exits, they were able to somewhat compete with us on a straight. Another option is, of course, the Ford that we're in, probably the most powerful car down the straights, definitely the most aggressively accelerating car down the straights. The Aston is also very strong in that sense. Cars that are not so good in that sense would be the Ferrari and Lexus. Those cars definitely suffer in the straights, particularly in acceleration. Le Mans obviously is the exception for the Lexus especially. The Lexus does seem to be very handy at Le Mans. Has very good top speed. The Fords also, despite being very good at Le Mans, does suffer a bit of top speed on fixed setup. But it's mostly the Ford BMW that I would recommend, especially for beginners, the BMW. The Aston also is a very good shoe-in if you can handle the on-throttle snappiness that it does sometimes have, particularly at low speed. The positive as well with those three cars is that they are all front engines, so generally they are a little bit more understeery or a little bit less flighty at the rear, a little bit less loose. Which obviously, as someone, you know, who's potentially starting on the game or someone who's struggling to progress up the splits, then these cars will definitely help with that because of that characteristic that they have. But again, we will look at our safety rating progress after the race, because again, we've had 2 races in a row now where we've had no contact, no track limit warnings, anything like that, so it has been a very good one for us. But there we have it. That is race number 2 of 2 today. Done. Again, relatively fortunate to have that P1, but it was a lot more slow progress. It was a much slower progress than race 1. Obviously, race 1 we had, you know, we were P8 by lap 1, which of course we were in the second race, but we were already P3 or P2 by lap 3, and obviously that was a lot longer progress or a longer process for us in the second race. Obviously, with a lot less incidents and a lot more calm, you know, situation for us there. Okay, here we are. It is generating currently, as you can see. So you can see driver ranking. We gained positions and whatnot, which is all good. But then with safety rating, you can see we have no red downwards arrows because we had no contact, we had no invalidations. But you can see we had 4 clean quali laps, which again is good by doing quali as long as you make sure the laps are clean. And we had 12 clean race laps, which is both high impact. You can see already from 2 races we're the middle of bronze 0. And while that doesn't sound like a lot, you know, we're 2 races. You know, it's quite quick progress for that sort of thing. But again, obviously we're trying to aim for silver, so we're going to have to go bronze 0, bronze 1, bronze 2, bronze 3, and then silver 1. So it is going to take a little bit of a while. But again, that's the journey that we are on. So there we have it. That is the first episode of us trying to get out of bronze safety rating, and I hope you guys found it helpful. If you did, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new. Make sure to leave a comment down below on what else you'd like to see. I'd love to make more content on this and other content like it as well, but I'd love to fulfill what you guys want to see. But if you're wanting to do one of these dailies, especially Portimao and any other dailies this week, make sure to check our video as mentioned earlier. The video is right here with our weekly guide for this week of daily races. So make sure to check that out, and I'll see you in that video. Take care and goodbye.